If your sales team stays busy, your pipeline looks full, and revenue is still inconsistent, you may not have an activity problem. You might have a targeting problem. In this episode, I want to talk about ideal customer profile, or ICP, and what it really means, why it matters, and why so many small and mid-sized businesses are chasing deals that were never a fit to begin with. So I want to welcome everybody back to the Selling Point Podcast. I'm Anthony Nix, and the founder of Transformative Sales Systems, easy for me to say, right? Where we help small and mid-sized businesses build better sales leadership, stronger processes, and more consistent revenue through fractional sales management. Now, today we're going to talk about something that gets mentioned a lot in sales and in marketing circles, but I don't think it gets used well often enough in the real world with real world sales teams, and especially in small and mid-sized businesses. And that is the ideal customer profile, or ICP. Now, I know that term can sound a little bit buzzwordish, if we can even use that as a word, and it gets thrown around in all kinds of workshops and strategy sessions and in marketing meetings. But the truth is this: if you are leading a sales team, or if you own a business and your sales results are inconsistent, this is not just a marketing concept. This is a sales performance issue. In fact, I would even argue that many of the revenue problems small and mid-sized businesses think they have are not really activity problems at all. They are not always closing problems. A lot of the time, they turn out to be an ICP problem. Now, what do you think I mean by that? Well, I mean the team is spending way too much time on companies that were never a strong fit in the first place. And that's where the real issue comes in. And when that happens, the business starts mistaking motion for progress. You know, the team's really busy, calls are being made, meetings are happening, opportunities are sitting in the CRM, and proposals are being sent out. And everybody looks really active. But when the month ends or the quarter ends, the numbers are still not where they need to be. That's when the leaders usually start asking really the wrong questions. They ask, do we need more leads? Do we need more outbound activity? Do we need better closing skills? Do we need more aggressive follow-up? And yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the answer to that is a resounding yes. Sometimes you do need those things. But sometimes the bigger issue is that your team is working really, really hard in the wrong places. And that's where ICP matters. So let's start with just a basic question. What is an ideal customer profile? Well, an ideal customer profile is a clear definition of the type of company most likely to buy from you, benefit from your solution, and become a profitable long-term customer. Not just a customer who can technically buy. It's not a customer who will take a meeting. It's not even a customer who will ask you for a proposal, and many of them will. I'm talking about the kind of customer that actually is a strong fit for your business. The kind of customer that tends to have the right pain or issues. They have the right urgency. They have the right budget mindset. They don't get hung up on cost. They're excited about outcomes. They have the right buying structure and the kind of need that lines up best with what you do. That's a big distinction, because one of the most common mistakes I see in small and mid-sized businesses is this idea that if a company might need what we sell, then they must be a prospect. And that sounds logical, I guess, on the surface, but it creates a lot of waste. If everyone is a prospect, well, really no one is. So there's the problem. When you target markets too broadly, your sales team loses focus. They start chasing a little bit of everything. One rep's going after one type of a company, another's going after something completely different. Another is following up on every inbound lead, regardless of fit. And suddenly you have a pipeline that looks active, but it's actually full of very low probability opportunities. That is not a healthy pipeline. It's just an inflated, bloated one. And I think that is an important thing to understand, because I see companies all the time say, well, our pipeline looks pretty good. We have a lot of deals in there. Okay, fair enough. But are they good deals? Are they real? Is there a strong fit opportunity there? Do they match the kinds of customers that you win with consistently? Do they have urgency? Do they have a budget? Do they have a real business reason to change? Or are they just sitting there because nobody wants to disqualify them? And that's a hard truth. A full pipeline can still be the wrong pipeline. And when your ideal customer profile is not clear, all sorts of downstream problems start to show up. Your sales cycles get longer because you're dealing with companies that don't have enough pain to actually act. Your win rates become inconsistent because your team is selling to too many different kinds of buyers and companies. Price objections start showing up all over the place because you are calling on accounts that do not value your solution the right way. Forecasting becomes really shaky because leaders are trying to predict revenue from deals that never should have been in the pipeline in the first place. And coaching, oh my gosh, coaching gets really hard because everyone is pursuing something different, a different version of what good opportunities look like. And that's crazy. That happens when ICP is vague or non-existent. Now, one of the reasons this happens is because a lot of businesses think ICP belongs to the marketing department. They think it's a branding issue or a messaging issue or a campaign issue. And yes, marketing absolutely benefits from a clear ideal customer profile. No question about that. Better targeting, better content, better messaging, and all of that really does matter. But ICP is also a sales tool and a very important one. It should help shape who the team prospects into. It should help shape how reps qualify opportunities. It should help shape your pipeline reviews. It could help shape your forecasting. And it will certainly help shape coaching. If it does not do those things, then it is probably just sitting in a document somewhere instead of being used to drive actual behavior. So what should be in an ideal customer profile? And this is where I think people oversimplify it. They say things like, well, our ideal customers are manufacturers with 50 to 500 employees in the Midwest. Okay, that might be part of it, but that's not good enough. Industry matters, size matters, geography matters. Revenue can matter, but that's just kind of the starting point. A good ICP should go deeper. What business problems do those companies tend to have that your solution is well positioned to solve? What events or triggers make them more likely to buy? What kind of pain do they usually feel when the opportunity is actually real? Who tends to own the problems internally with your prospects? What does their buying process typically look like? What budget mindset do they have? What makes them profitable for us? And what makes them easy to serve after the sale? Those are the kinds of questions that make ICP useful. Because two companies can look similar on paper and be very, very different opportunities. They can be in the same industry, the same rough size, similar revenue, and one is a great fit while the other is a complete waste of time. That is where firmographics alone aren't enough. Now, here's another point that's worth clarifying because people mix these terms up all the time, and it is a difference between ICP and buyer persona. And they are not the same thing. Your ICP defines the type of company you should be targeting. The buyer persona defines the type of person within the company you are likely selling to. So, for example, your ICP might be a privately held small or mid-sized business with a certain level of revenue, certain operational issues within their business, a weak sales structure, and a need for stronger sales leadership. Does that ICP sound somewhat familiar? That's roughly mine. The buyer persona inside that company might be the CEO, the owner, the president, or maybe a VP responsible for sales performance. One is the company, the other is the person. You need both, but you should never confuse them. Now let's talk about how to actually build an ICP, because this is where companies, they tend to get a little lazy. And a lot of businesses build their ICP based on opinions. They sit around a table and they say, we want bigger customers, or we should probably go after healthcare, or we think construction is a good market, or maybe we need more enterprise accounts. And that's not a strategy. That's just spitballing and guessing. Your ideal customer profile should be based on evidence. Look at your current, your past customers. Study your really best deals. Look at customers that closed, were profitable, were easy to serve, stayed longer, and got good results from working with you. Then compare them to the deals you lost, the deals that stalled, and the customers that became difficult after the sale. So what patterns do you see? Who tends to close faster? Who tends to drag a sales cycle out over time? Who beats you up on price? Who creates the most margin? Who turns into the strongest long-term customer? Who creates headaches after the deal is signed? That is real data. That is what should shape your ICP. One of my favorite ways to think about this is to ask a really simple question. Would you want 10 more customers just like this one? That question cuts through an awful lot of the BS and nonsense, because there are customers who buy from you that you do not actually want more of. And we all know them. We've all dealt with them. Maybe they were hard to onboard. Maybe they were not a good cultural fit. Maybe they were constantly pushing the scope, doing scope creep. Maybe they created more internal strain than the revenue value. Maybe they looked like a win at first, but in reality, they were not a good match. Your ICP should not be built around whoever happened to buy from you. It should be built around the kinds of customers you want to replicate. Now, that's real work. You got to sit down and do some digging and thinking. And while you're on the subject, let me say this. A good ICP is not only about identifying who is a fit, but it's also identifying who is not. This is where a lot of companies struggle. They do not want to exclude anybody because that feels a little risky. It feels like turning away opportunity. It feels like shrinking the market. But what usually happens is the absolute opposite. The business becomes more focused, the team gets more efficient, the performance improves because people stop wasting time on weak fit opportunities. You need to define what a bad fit looks like. And maybe it's, companies that are too small or accounts that have no real urgency. Maybe it's buyers who are so price driven and don't value your solution. Maybe it's the type of project that looks attractive on the front end, but is always painful to deliver. You need the discipline to say, this may be business out there in the world, but it's not good target for us. And that's really healthy. That is not a weakness. That's a level of maturity in running your business. Now, once you have a clear ICP, the next step is to actually use it. And this is where sales leadership comes in, because ICP documents sitting in a folder does not change performance. Leadership has to operationalize it. It should shape prospecting lists. It should shape qualification criteria. It should show up in pipeline and review conversations. It should affect forecast judgment, and it should show up in your coaching. Sales leaders should be asking reps questions like, why does this account fit our ideal customer profile? What buying trigger do they have? What pain have we uncovered? Does this company, compared to the customers we win with best? Why are we spending time here? And those are great questions to ask. Without them, salespeople will default to what feels active, and active is not always effective. This is one of the reasons I believe fractional sales management is so valuable for small and mid-sized businesses. A lot of SMBs simply do not have anyone in the organization whose job it is to step back, look across the data, evaluate pipeline quality, identify patterns, to challenge assumptions, and to then align the sales process around better fit opportunities. The owner is usually buried in 10 other things. The salespeople are focused on their own territories and accounts. Marketing is trying to generate interest, but nobody truly owns the quality of the target market or the discipline around qualification. And this causes you to get off course. And over time, that drift into poor pipeline quality, weak forecasting, inconsistent results, and frustration. A strong sales leader can help the business define its ICP using real data, not guesswork. More importantly, that leader can embed those standards into the way the team sells every day. And now that's what really matters. Because the goal is not just to have a smarter strategy deck. The goal is to have a team spend more time on the right prospects, improve close rates, strengthen forecasts, and build a healthier revenue-ish engine. So if you're listening to this today and your team feels busy, but the results are not where you need them to be, I would challenge you to stop assuming the answer is just more activity. Take a hard look at who your team is actually spending time on. Are those accounts really aligned with the kind of customer you win with best? Do you have a clearly defined ideal customer profile? Does your team know it? Do they use it? Is it built into qualification and pipeline reviews? Or is everybody working off their own private definition of a good opportunity? And that's really the real question, because you may not have a lead problem. You may not even have a closing problem. You might just have a targeting problem. And until that gets fixed, you are going to keep confusing busyness with progress. All right. Well, that's the episode for today. If this conversation hit home, sparked a nerve with you, and your team is chasing too many low probability opportunities, fill the CRM up with poor fit deals, or struggling to turn activity into revenue, that is exactly the kind of work we help businesses solve at Transformative Sales Systems. So I want to thank you all for listening to the Selling Point podcast. Again, I am Anthony Nix, CEO of Transformative Sales Systems, and we'll see you next time.